So, in case it hasn't become apparent, I love a good Ubisoft game. I've covered many on the channel. We've done numerous Assassin's Creed games which I've loved, Watch Dogs games that I've thoroughly enjoyed, and even some of the more stressful experiences like The Division 2 and even Zombie. Looking back at my trophy list, it has come to my attention that I'm yet to even platinum a Far Cry game, and so in today's video, that changes as we get the platinum trophy for Far Cry 5. Anyway guys, very short intro today, but we've got a long video ahead of us, so with that out of the way, this is the story of how a deputy attempted to build a resistance and liberate an entire county from a cult's influence, and how I got the platinum trophy for Far Cry 5. Enjoy. The game takes place in 2018, where a video leaks online that shows a man named Joseph Seed had managed to create a religious cult-like movement called the Project at Eden's Gate, located in Hope County, Montana. In this video, we see Seed murdering one of his own followers, which then leads to the US Marshals and the Hope County Sheriff's Department to launch a joint operation in which we head into his compound to arrest him. I say we because we play as the rookie who is also coming along on this mission. The sheriff continues to warn the marshal on the journey that heading into the compound is a bad idea, but he insists on proceeding with the mission. We land at the compound and make our way up to its church, where we head inside and find Seed talking to his followers. The marshal presents his arrest warrant and Seed holds out his hands while saying that God won't let us take him, and we are then given a choice to either arrest him or leave him and his cult alone. If we don't do anything, we'll get an alternate ending right here. However, we aren't doing that. We've come here to do a job, and that job we shall do. We cuff him and proceed to escort him back to the helicopter. As we board the chopper, the cultists start getting overly hostile and begin to attack us as we are taking off. They even go as far as to launching themselves into the rotors, sacrificing themselves and causing our chopper to fall out of the sky. We awaken to find Joseph spouting nonsense and answering the call to dispatch, where it is revealed that even she was a member of this cult. He then escapes the helicopter and proceeds to tell his followers that a massive event has begun known as the Collapse, before telling them to commence the reaping. A few of our partners get taken away, however we manage to make our escape and eventually end up regrouping with the US Marshal, where we plan to make our escape out of the compound and request help from the National Guard. Of course, our escape doesn't go too well and we are run off of the road and thrown into the water below. We end up washing ashore, where we see the marshal being taken by a group of cultists while we seem to be taken by someone else. Turns out that someone else was Dutch, and he had taken us back to his bunker on his island. Dutch tells us that each of our partners have been taken to one of each of Joseph Seed's family members, who each control one of the 3 regions around Hope County. Together we decide it's time to build a resistance to finally bring down Joseph Seed and his cult, but before we can do that, we need to liberate Dutch's island. This acts as the tutorial and gives us an introduction into the kinds of things that we are going to be spending the majority of our time doing throughout the game. This involved liberating an outpost, saving some hostages, and activating the island's antenna. We liberate the island and unlock our first trophy of the game for completing the game's intro. We are then shown a broadcast by one of Joseph's heralds, his younger brother John Seed, that shows he has our partner Deputy Hudson held captive. This marks our first target, and we head into the Holland Valley region in order to bring down its cult influence in that area. We begin by heading to the town of Fool's End, where we find it under attack by the cultists. After taking down the cultists, we liberate the town of Fool's End and begin working with its people, running numerous operations to both rebuild the region and stop the cult. At this point, it was time to complete the many quests that the game considers main quests, destroy cult structures and equipment, as well as liberating locations and saving its hostages. During this time, I of course recruited all of the companions available in this area, with the first one of course being Boomer the dog, because doggy, that's why. I then recruited Grace Armstrong, ex-military Olympic medalist sharpshooter and deadly with a sniper. And finally next, I helped out a local by the name of Nick Rye get back his plane that was stolen by the Peggies. His wife is pregnant and they need it in order to get out of the county, as she's due any time now. We agree to help, so we head to a nearby ranch owned by John Seed, where we proceed to make our way to the hangar while taking down as many cultists as we can along the way. We end up finding Nick's plane and manage to make our escape with it. Nick decides to let us have a little bit of fun with his plane and tasks us with destroying the numerous pieces of equipment used by the cultists, during which I unlocked the Road Gunner trophy for killing 25 enemies while in a vehicle. Upon getting back to Nick's, we find the cultists have overrun his home and we rush in to help defend it. After dealing with all of the cultists, Nick is adamant on leaving, but his wife insists on staying, and eventually Nick changes his mind and agrees to help us fight against the cult. This also unlocks another trophy for completing the mission. While liberating the region, we are drugged and caught by a capture group sent out by John Seed. While captured, Joseph makes an appearance and he proceeds to tell us that despite what we have done, we may still find salvation and that we have been given a gift and not to waste it, before being taken away in a prisoner transport. During the journey to wherever we was headed to, something causes the van to crash and we are saved from the wreckage by Falls End resident Jerome Jeffries. With the help of Jerome and the Resistance, we push up and take a nearby checkpoint before finding and rescuing Resistance member Merle. During the assault, I managed to unlock the up close and personal trophy for performing 25 takedowns. After saving Merle, we proceed to take the fight against the cult, but it wasn't long before we were once again drugged and captured by John. This time we awaken in a bunker tied up in a room opposite Deputy Hudson. John proceeds to ramble on and tells us that he will reveal our sins and that we must agree to atone for them. I'm guessing he gets nervous with people watching, so he proceeds to take Hudson elsewhere, during which we take the chance to escape by wheeling ourselves down a flight of stairs. At this point we then gather any weapons we could find and proceed to clean house, or rather in this instance, clean bunker. We eventually come to a locked door where we see John inside with a deputy. He of course continues to ramble on a little bit before revealing to us that our sin is wrath, and proceeds to let out a gas of the drug used to capture us, and we have to make our escape from the bunker. We do get a trophy however for being deemed the sin of wrath, which to be fair sounds kinda cool to me. Now we had escaped the bunker, we proceed to help the Resistance as well as a few other questionable characters that we've met along the way, during which we also unlock a few more trophies. The first trophy I got was the Scavenger trophy for following the clues and completing 3 treasure hunts. Treasure hunts are essentially just caches around the map that usually contain ammo, weapons, money and skill point magazines. Next we helped out a local by the name of Larry who was in a bit of trouble and had been locked inside of his own contraption by some cultists. We decide to help the guy out and locate and turn off the generators powering his machine, save Larry, unlocking the What Now trophy for completing 3 side missions. Turns out Larry was a bit of a conspiracy theorist and was well into his aliens and needed our help with fixing his teleporter. For some reason this seemed more important to me than bringing down John Seed, so I agreed to help and eventually come to find that his machine is in fact a teleporter, and not only that, it actually works. That or it turned him into the Thunder Gun on the ground. Helping Larry though did get us another trophy.
This place always gives me the creeps.
And finally, we liberated a total of 5 locations for the Liberator trophy. Eventually, we had done enough to cripple the cult's influence in that region, bringing down the wrath of a herald, and it gives us the Death Wish mark, which also unlocks us the Kick in the Hornet's Nest trophy.
Your actions have consequences, Deputy.
We return to Falls End to find that it has been overrun by John Seed and the cultists. We head to the church where everyone seems to be held captive, when we are too also knocked out and captured. We soon wake up and find John tattooing the word wrath onto our chest, which is the sin he believes we are guilty of. He then proceeds to hold his own cleansing ceremony, which entails you agreeing to atone for your sin and then him cutting the freshly tattooed skin off of the sinner. Yeah, No thanks, my man. Luckily, Jerome is an absolute legend and managed to hand us a revolver that is hidden within his Bible, allowing us to take a shot at John, causing the cultists to retreat and giving us time to recover. Me and Nick proceed to chase John down, which eventually leads to a dogfight in the air and us finding out that he's invincible to a plane flying into him, but not invincible to bullets. As he dies, we listen to him ramble on one last time about how Joseph is right, and we take the key to his bunker. Once there, we find and rescue Deputy Hudson along with every other prisoner trapped in there. We escape and blow up the bunker so that it can't be used again and head back to Fool's End to celebrate, and we also unlock another trophy.
That's the last of them. Great job, Deputy. You just did some...
After taking John C. down, I decided to treat myself with some of the cash I'd saved up and bought some new clothing, which unlocked us the Fashion First trophy. Shortly after that, we head over to Nick's to check how he and the wife are doing when his wife goes into labour and we are tasked with getting them to the doctors safely. Of course, this wasn't a simple journey and it seemed like everything wanted to get in our way and kill us before we got there. Nevertheless, I'm an expert behind the wheel and we get to the doctors in time. They were now parents and I now had another trophy. We continue our fight against the cult by heading up into the Whitetail Mountains controlled by Joseph's other brother Jacob. Again, much like the first area, we begin liberating the region by taking back control of outposts and helping the resistance and locals fight back. While doing this, I make sure to recruit Herc Jr. onto our team as there's a trophy that he will be helping me with later. Eventually, our efforts were enough for Jacob to send out a capture team and again we are drugged and captured. We awake to find ourselves being tied up by Deputy Pratt, who seemed to be mindlessly under the control of Jacob. Jacob then proceeds to use that very same mind control tactic on us and it seems to work, only this time we were turned into a walk-in murder party and were put through what Jacob called a trial. We make our way through the trial, killing the targets until we make it to the final target, and it's at that point we are woken by members of the Whitetail Militia and rescued. We are taken back to their bunker that they call the Wolf's Den and are introduced to its members, with its leader being Eli, and we agree to help them continue their fight against the cult while also working to bring down its influence ourselves. It's also here that we unlock another story related trophy. While continuing to help liberate the region, I managed to unlock a few miscellaneous trophies. The first trophy we unlocked involved Herc, who we recruited earlier. Now Herc carries a rocket launcher, so comes exceptionally in handy when dealing with enemy vehicles, which makes sense as to why we get the Herc Locker trophy for getting him to destroy a total of 15. Seeing as we are in a mountain range, one of the best ways to traverse through it is the use of the wingsuit, and using this wingsuit to glide a total of 5,000 meters unlocks us the Like a Bird trophy. And finally, we used a vehicle to run over and kill a total of 20 enemies for the Squash and Run trophy. Our efforts hadn't gone unnoticed and we were once again captured by Jacob's men. Again, he puts us under his mind control influence and are again put through another trial. Once we complete the trial, we awaken in a cell to find Deputy Pratt seemingly more normal than before. He releases us from our cell and helps us make an escape. He goes on to tell us about how dangerous Jacob is with the ability he has to mind control people, and goes on to show us exactly what these trials are for and what Jacob is planning. Jacob then sets his music box off again over the speakers and Pratt pushes us over the balcony in order to save us. Now that we had escaped, we go straight back to continuing to work away at the cult's influence in that region, but it wasn't long before we were yet again captured by Jacob's men. Once again, he plays his music box and once again, we are under his control. This was now our third trial. However, the ending was very different. This time we discover our final target was Eli, and we had no choice but to pull the trigger, and this was no dream, as when we come round we find out that we had entered the wolf's den and actually shot him. This of course is a massive blow to the Whitetail militia, as they effectively have just lost their leader. Eli's second in command manages to calm down Wheaty and somewhat forgives us, as she knows that we were under Jacob's influence. She does tell us though that if we don't find Jacob and kill him, then she will kill us. We head outside the bunker to find an army of cultists and a bunch of speakers and beacons placed around the area, leading us to have to fight between what is real and what is not. We destroy all of the beacons, helping us to regain our sanity, and proceed to climb up to Jacob and put him down for good. We take his key, head to his bunker and save Deputy Pratt. Pratt then destroys all of the bunker's equipment and we make our escape as our second bunker is blown up. We also unlock another story related trophy for saving Deputy Pratt. With 2 leaders taken care of, it was now on to the third, where we find ourselves heading down into the Henbane River under the control of Joseph's sister Faith Seed. We begin by answering a distress call and head into Hope County Jail. There we find some resistance fighters as well as Sheriff Whitehorse trying to repel an attack from the cultists, and we of course step in to lend a hand in dealing with them. After helping fight back the cultists, it was time to follow the standard procedure that we have been doing for most of this game so far. However, shortly after leaving the prison, Faith makes an appearance and drugs us once again. We discover that Faith is also the one who grows the bliss plant for the cult. During our drug-fueled vision, Faith gives us her backstory, and we discover that the US Marshal ended up in this region and is already heavily under the bliss and Faith's influence. We eventually come back around and proceed to help the prison and the locals fight back. We rescue some prisoners from the cult, we destroy a massive statue along with a book of Jacob's teachings, and we of course grab all of the companions, one of these being Peaches the lion. You see, while out and about, I managed to stumble across a taxidermist whose owner tells us that the cultists had raided her place in order to try and kill the lion, but instead ended up getting chased by it. We agree to help track Peaches down and manage to track her down to a local campsite where we find her attacking the same cultists. We deal with the cultists and manage to lure her back to the taxidermist with some fresh meat, which didn't actually matter anyway, as Peaches' owner practically gives her to us as a reward. This does, however, unlock us another trophy. Next up, we headed to one of the Clutch Nixon stunt races and unlocked the greatest son of a bitch who ever lived trophy for completing at least one of these in each region of the game. Next, we travel to a water treatment plant where we find the cultists have taken over and are using this plant to lace Hope County's water supply with bliss. Of course, being the hero, it's our job to shut this place down and allow the citizens of Hope County to have some clean drinking water, although some major repairs will have to be done first before that can happen. This does unlock us the Sewer Rat trophy for completing the mission. We then find out that shrines have been set up all across the region, and upon destroying our first one, unlock the Troublemaker trophy for destroying cult property in each area. At this point, we had also accumulated a decent little amount of money, and so I decided to knock out the Locked and Loaded trophy for buying all attachments for a single weapon. And finally, a short while later, we had stumbled across a whiskey barrel stuck on the riverbed, which also just happened to be the last collectible type we needed to collect in order to unlock the Pack Rat trophy for grabbing one of each collectible item. We then catch wind of a bliss farm that has been set up in the region, so we go to burn the place down and slow down their manufacturing. Upon doing so, we are once again drugged by Faith, only this time she shows us a vision that reveals Joseph's true plans. Joseph Seed essentially had visions of bringing an end to the world and then rebuild and shape it into what he refers to as New Eden. And it's at this point we also get another story related trophy. It seems our vision had caused us to go into some state of shock as we come around to find the sheriff and Tracy trying to restrain us in order to pump us with adrenaline to bring us back around completely. Once back on our feet, however, we continue to fight the good fight, during which we come across a film producer trying to shoot a scene for Blood Dragon 3, and he had requested our help in ensuring there was as little background noise as possible. Obviously, this meant taking out some of the local cultists. During this side quest, however, we do unlock the Ain't No Wallflower trophy for speaking to a total of 50 citizens.
Listen, I'm not the first AD, I'm just the sound guy, Dean.
We are of course unfortunately drugged again by Faith, where this time she lets the marshal take the reins and he takes us on a little boat ride while declaring how much he loves his new life and purpose, and convinces us to try and join him. The vision doesn't last too long, however. We are shortly found and rescued by the sheriff and the resistance, and we find out that they have also managed to save the marshal as well, which also unlocks us the blissful trophy for saving the marshal. Again, we went back to the Liberating, and again in the end I found myself spending my hard-earned money, this time on vehicles, where I purchased 3 to unlock the stocked garage trophy. A little while later, we are once again, I'm pretty sure you can guess what I'm about to say, drugged by Faith, only this time she shows us a vision of her controlling the marshal, where she uses him to shoot and kill Virgil before releasing the prisoners and then killing himself. We head back to the prison to once again find it under attack from the cult. We repel the attack and find out from Tracy that Faith had taken the sheriff. With that, we headed outside to confront Faith, where she drugs us once again. This time, however, would definitely be her last, as this vision leads to a boss fight with her that has us directing damage at her while fighting off waves of her bliss angels. I will say this was probably the coolest boss fight out of the 3, and I'm assuming having the bliss play a major role in inducing a vision, the developers could kind of take this wherever they wanted, and to be fair, I don't think they did too much of a bad job. We eventually take her down and make our way into her bunker. Inside, we find the sheriff locked inside a room, and he gets himself prepared to hang himself, but manages to mentally hold off the Bliss's influence while we get to work on shutting down the Bliss's production. We make our way through Faith's bunker, clearing out all of the cultists, and we soon blow up the production facility, rescuing the sheriff in the process and making our escape from the bunker before it explodes. With all of Joseph's siblings now dead, it was time to face him. We head over to Joseph's compound and to the church, where we find Joseph alone. Well, so we thought, as it turns out he was able to use the remaining bliss supplies to influence and control our companions into holding our partners at gunpoint. We are once again given a choice: walk away or take Joseph down. Obviously, we choose the latter of the two, which leads to a pretty lengthy shootout. Throughout the fight, we continuously have to down our companions in order to help them break free of Joseph's influence, while at the same time dealing damage to him whenever we can. Eventually, we emerge victorious and had finally taken Seed down. Our friends were no longer under his control, and the sheriff proceeds to slap the cuffs on him. All of a sudden though, a mushroom cloud can be seen as a nuclear bomb detonates in the distance. We take Joseph, jump in the nearby truck and race through the chaos ensuing around us in an attempt to reach Dutch's bunker before it's too late. Unfortunately, our journey is cut short by a falling tree, and we come round to find all 3 of our partners have been killed. Joseph, on the other hand, survived and manages to escape and takes him with us. We later awaken to find ourselves chained to a bed in Dutch's bunker, with Joseph standing in front of us and Dutch dead on the floor next to us. Seed then turns and proceeds to tell us that this means the politicians have been silenced, corrupt corporations have been destroyed, and the world has now been cleansed. Meaning that he was right and the collapse he had prophesied had come to fruition. He then goes on to remind us that we had killed his family and that he should kill us for what we have done. But now that we are the only 2 left alive, we are all he has left, and now we are his new family, with him being the father and us being the child, and telling us that together we will march onto Eden's Gate.
I am your father, and you are my child, and together we will march to Eden's Gate.
With that, the game fades to black and brings an end to the story. And we are also rewarded with the Together Forever trophy for completing the main story. So with that being the end of the main story, now it was time for the cleanup stage and to focus on all of the other trophies that we could do in single player that we never completed while playing through the story. The first thing I decided to do was knock out the decent amount of hunting and fishing challenges, as there was a trophy related for beating all of them. As you can probably guess, we now had to go around hunting many different types of animals and taking their skins. Thankfully, most of these are relatively easy to find, and a lot of the areas where they can be found will be marked on your map, providing of course you have either seen the sign indicating there is a certain animal in that area or have killed an animal in that area already. The one animal that did give me a little bit of a hard time were the eagles. We had to kill a total of 3, and I had like 3 or 4 spots marked on my map where I was supposed to be able to find them. However, had very little luck when it came to them actually spawning. Eventually though, we did manage to of course get them done, but it did take me a little while. While hunting the animals though, I did kill one of the bisons that I needed to hunt using only melee weapons, which ended up unlocking the Ignoble Beasts trophy. Now it was time to complete the fishing challenges. There were less varieties of fish we had to catch than there were animals that we had to hunt, and much like the animals, spots where you can find them were also marked on the map, again providing you have come across the spot before. Now this was 10 times easier than hunting the animals and didn't really prove much of an issue at all, and it wasn't long before we caught the last fish we needed for our challenges, which unlocked us the Been There Done That trophy for completing all of the hunting and fishing challenges. Now, while going through all of the fishing challenges, I decided to also work towards acquiring all 4 rods in the game. One was our standard basic rod that we get for free, and you can actually just find laying about the map. Our second rod was the one that we could simply buy from any weapon vendor. Our third rod was the Wonder Boy, which required us to complete a couple of side quests for a local called Skylar that ends in us catching a legendary fish known as the Admiral. And our fourth and final rod required us to beat each of the records for biggest fish in each region. This meant finding fishing spots that were tagged as hard and fishing in that spot with the hopes of catching a heavier fish. At this stage, I had already unlocked the Wonder Boy rod, and using that along with the lure, we were able to beat the records for each of these fish relatively easy, and unlocking the Old Betsy fishing rod, which also unlocks us the Hope County Master Angler trophy. Now, even though the previous stage was relatively easy, it still took a lot of time and many attempts to beat the records. This meant that I had a massive inventory of fish, so I decided to sell them all to the local market, and after selling a total of 20, I unlocked the Fish Market trophy. I then decided to focus on the majority of the combat related trophies, with my first being the Opportunity Knocks trophy for using rocks or vans to distract 15 enemies. Now, I was quite surprised I never unlocked this during the story, as I distracted quite a lot of enemies. Not sure if the trophy is buggy or if I simply just didn't distract as many people as I thought. In the end though, it didn't matter because it wasn't long before we unlocked the trophy. We next put a scope on our rifle and headed up onto a cliff opposite a cultist shrine. Using our rifle and making sure we were at least 150 meters away from the target, I managed to headshot one of the cultists, unlocking the Ghost Kill trophy. The next trophy I unlocked was the Death from Above trophy, and this required us to use a plane to drop a bomb and destroy a total of 4 vehicles at once. This wouldn't be so bad, but the opportunity, at least for me, never arose in this game to get that done, so it led to me having to find other methods in order to get this rather than using the game developers' desired way. So what I resorted to doing was borrowing Nick Rye's plane and flying it over to Falls End. I then headed to my garage and spawned 4 vehicles in, one at a time, parking them right next to the plane, and after I had all 4 surrounding the plane, I jumped inside, dropped a bomb, and unlocked the Death from Above trophy. Our next trophy required us to have the Saboteur perk unlocked and using it to sabotage vehicles, causing them to explode, and we needed that explosion to kill a total of 5 enemies. I found the easiest way to do this was head to an outpost that hasn't been liberated and go loud. This then causes the cultists to call for backup, and usually 2 to 3 jeeps will pull up, and as soon as they stop, sabotage the vehicle and try your best to keep them close to the vehicle. Eventually this will unlock the Explosive Surprise trophy. Our next trophy was pretty simple. We just needed to use the resources we've been picking up through the story to craft a total of 25 items, and after doing so, unlocks the Extra Crafty trophy. I then went to a nearby vehicle shop and spent even more money on vehicles, and eventually I'd spent a total of $50,000, which unlocked the Big Spender trophy. And it was also at this point I realised I had a few perk points that I hadn't spent yet, so I decided to invest in a couple of skills, which then unlocked the Survivalist trophy for having purchased half of all of the perks in the game. I then used a tractor known as the Reaper and headed to a nearby outpost, with our goal being to absolutely obliterate 5 enemies with this thing. Doing so unlocks the Fertilizing the Land trophy. Now the way we are going to get this next trophy is very similar to the way that we got the Death from Above trophy earlier, mainly because I couldn't find any cult planes flying around anywhere. We once again borrowed Nick's plane and this time used the hangar at his airstrip to spawn in a bunch of planes that I owned. I then jumped in Nick's plane and used the machine guns to destroy the one that I had just spawned. Doing this enough times eventually managed to boost me up to the 10 I needed in total, unlocking the Ace Killer trophy. And that brings us to the final trophy of the single player campaign, and that is to tenderize a bull with our bare hands. In other words, we needed to beat a bull to death. Now typically this would take a lengthy amount of time to do with your bare fists, but thanks to a few combat enhancers, we were able to increase our strength, allowing us to practically one bang this big boy, which unlocks us the Where's the Beef trophy. Now we were on to our final 6 trophies of the game, all of them being multiplayer related. Now I was worried about actually being able to get these trophies going into this, as the multiplayer isn't overly active anymore. I found that if I quick search for a game, then I would literally never find anyone. I sat searching for a quick match for about 10 minutes solid and hadn't managed to find a single lobby, and I had done this quite a few times. Luckily, Ubisoft has implemented a server browser where I was lucky enough to still find people playing this game hosting their own servers, albeit not very many. Most of these servers were private, however there were a few open ones where I would find other players grinding out the multiplayer with the hopes of getting the trophies as well. Yes, you can get these trophies in private lobbies. Now obviously while going for these trophies I relied on randoms and just sheer luck, although if you're going for these trophies I 100% recommend getting a partner. Get anyone. If you need help on these trophies, put your PSN down in the comments below or your Xbox down in the comments below, your Xbox gamer tag, and just see if someone can help you. See if there's someone out there who needs this as well, because getting these trophies with a partner is so much easier than relying on randoms. It will shorten the amount of time you need to get these trophies so much. The first trophy was the Arcade Hunter trophy, which was really simple. All we had to do was kill a total of 100 enemies in multiplayer. Yeah, we played quite a few matches of this, it's fair to say.
What a shot.
And the second trophy was the Arcade Competitor Trophy for winning a game 10 times on featured maps. Shovel Dodgers, at least currently, is a featured map, so if you're getting this platinum and you're seeing people playing this map, give it a go, see if you can get on the winning team and you'll get this trophy. Our next two trophies I was thankfully able to complete solo, however it was still multiplayer related. The first trophy required us to play the arcade hero mode, which essentially just gives you a random map to play each time you play it. It's basically like a quick match for solo players. Of course, rather than being related to killing multiplayer enemies, these were typically objective based maps, often requiring us to clear outposts or navigating our way through a map, making our way to the exit point. Doing this 5 times unlocks the Arcade Hero Trophy. And the second trophy is very similar to the previous, except rather than using the Arcade Hero to quick search, we had to load up maps that were on the featured playlist and complete those instead. As I said, apart from the quick search, it is essentially the exact same thing, and after doing this 10 times, we unlock the Arcade Enthusiast Trophy.
Victory.
Now, while grinding out XP, I was also on the search for a co-op partner to help me get the one co-op related trophy out of the way. I asked a few people in the voice chat and I messaged a few people in different lobbies with the hopes of finding someone willing to help me out. Most people weren't interested, but I eventually came across an absolute legend who agreed to help, and turns out he needed it too, so it was a win-win. I quickly invited him to my game, and within about 15 minutes we completed 3 side quests, which resulted in us both getting the Hitting It Off trophy. Now all that was left to do was go back to the multiplayer and continue to grind for XP. This time I managed to find some pretty full lobbies, and after a couple of hours had managed to get enough XP to reach level 20, unlocking the Arcade Player Trophy, and of course unlocking the We Always Had Faith in You Platinum Trophy. Now guys, with that being the Platinum Trophy, this now brings us to the end of the video. Having now platinumed this game and experiencing a decent amount of what the base game has to offer, I think I'm quite happy to say that it is quite an enjoyable experience. The story for me is incredibly interesting, not so much of a fan of how the missions work and how you progress through the main story, but the story itself I thoroughly enjoyed. The combat is your typical Far Cry combat. Some people love it, some people aren't too fond of it. I personally quite like it, but it could be improved. I feel like it's been the same for like a while now and could use a bit of a change up. Saying that, I am yet to play Far Cry 6, so maybe they have changed it and I've just been living under a rock. I'm sure I'll find out soon enough. The world of Hope County is massive, it's beautiful and it's fun to explore, although I really do wish they had added more secrets that could be found throughout, or just like more things to do, as I feel like a lot of space isn't really being utilised to its full potential and just kind of feels empty in some areas. And finally, when it comes to the multiplayer, if you can get into a game, then you'll likely have a good bit of fun. Especially if it's a pretty packed lobby, but there are times when the game is just literally dead and you can't find a lobby for love nor money. That aside though, this is a game that I had an enjoyable time getting the platinum for, and I'd say if you've got a partner or you're just willing to rely on finding random lobbies, then getting this platinum is a no-brainer. Apart from the multiplayer, everything else can be done on your own and is relatively straightforward. But anyway guys, this brings us to the end of the video. Please let me know your thoughts on Far Cry 5 down in the comments below, and whether or not this is a platinum you have or would like to have in your collection. If you've enjoyed the video, then make sure to smash that like button and share this video around. It shows your support, and your support is greatly appreciated on the channel. And if you haven't already, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn notifications on to be the first to know when a new video goes live. I hope you all have a great day, and I'll see you all in the next video.